What's up, guys? Going to do it a little bit different today. I think everyone can just go back and watch the live stream. I'm thinking about doing this every Sunday, and I'm going to go through what I'm going to do real quick. Is I'm going to go through frontline updates, and I'll be able to answer questions from you guys. Kind of while I'm doing it. Hello, hey. Yeah, you didn't call first, bro. You have to call first. All right, so real quick, I guess we're gonna roll through and start with Kharkiv and get down to the Donetsk line. So we talked a little bit yesterday about this area here in Udi had been captured, and we have seen like a little more information to confirm that. And real quick, I'll go ahead and pull in the intel for you guys from the other screen, just so you can see it. And what you're seeing, I mean, this is basically like the entire bit of intelligence that I initially acted on first, was just this map that had been created, obviously from the Russian side and the Russian sources. And today there's like more statements that came out to kind of corroborate it. So it seems like there's a high probability that this has actually happened. So I'll go ahead and move that back off. And we're going to take this and we're going to change it into the red color. Still with the yellow border. So, I mean, that is a pretty significant advance. There are like several towns in here. You have Udi. You have, I believe, no smaller border towns. You have this little town here, Gurov Kozachik. Let me know how much you guys like my my pronunciations of these towns. I'm sure I absolutely butcher them. Sotnitsky Kozachik, and then Odnorobivka. So these three towns, and then I mean, maybe even like some fighting's going on further down here in these locations, but we haven't really had any word. But one of the pieces of the intel that did come out was that the Ukrainian army did end up retreating from this area. So I think that's important to note. Hold on. It looks like we got some buffering here. Okay. Is everyone caught back up? Is it still buffering? Give me some thumbs up in the chat if we're good. Let's see here. Anyone caught? Is it still buffering for you guys? No? I don't know. No buffering? All good? Okay. All right, cool. Retreated from that area, and then it was occupied by the Russian forces. It gives them a little more space between Belgorod and Kharkiv. Obviously, you want to kind of like force the balance of artillery like closer to the Ukrainian side if you are the Russians. So this is a more advantageous front line for them, obviously. just real quick, we're going to move down and talk about some of these things, and then go get to some of you guys' questions. So we don't have really any updated information from Gusarivka. I'm not really going to focus on that. I'm actually going to move down to the Bakhmut area. There's been a lot of like news coming out about this in the last few hours. There has been some progress made here in the Yakovlivka area. It looks like at least this portion of the town, and then the rest of the parts of this side of the town, Russian forces are advancing into. I'm sorry, guys, it's still buffering. All good now? Are we caught up? Cool. So yeah, Yakovlivka is seeing a lot of action. There's some progress being made there. There's some progress in Soledar, however, like we don't really know exactly like what the lines are there. In terms of Bakhmut, I have seen some more information that confirms what I previously reported, that the Russian side had captured these heights here. So we're going to go ahead and adjust that real quick. I'm actually going to pull over a map for you guys in a second. If I can get this. It's fairly obvious that I do all of this on a laptop, because you could tell, because the speed and the connectivity, it's just like it seems like it kind of sucks for live streams. Let me go ahead and pull this intel over for you guys. This is the most recent information we have on the area. So the claim is that the village of Vershina, like further to the south of Bakhmut, down here, was actually pretty contested over the last couple of weeks. We reported it captured a few times, but it like wasn't, apparently. So we never really got a chance to retract that, but they announced over the night that it had been captured, and they seemed to have a little more confidence about it, like it was something more permanent. I'm not really sure, but they're moving into Zaitsevo north from Vershina, and they're cleaning that up now too. And this is supposedly the movement of Russian forces on these fronts. And once they finish mopping up Zaitsevo and this area down here, this is where they're moving into. They'll be able to then advance on Bakhmut from two separate lines of attack, which will make it obviously a lot easier, right? So that's the idea. I'm not going to adjust this or anything yet, because we don't have an official statement about the capture of Zaitsevo or the capture of Vesela Dolina. So we're just going to leave the map how it is, but there is some, I guess you could say, excitement on the Russian side for this situation. I get that there's problems with the stream, but I'm just going to keep going, and hopefully like it actually records it like in the long run without like all the glitches and everything. And then at the end, I'll stop messing around with the map, and I'll be able to talk to you guys and answer some questions. There's progress made there. Moving a little down to the south, talking about the situation in Pesky. So notably there was some intel about like the mopping up of this town. You have the TOS-1 systems that were doing a lot of work on these positions. You have heavy casualties among the 56th Brigade. And there's a little bit of speculation to go here upon what the Russians are going to do next. As far as I'm aware, they're still kind of like they haven't solidified control over Pesky. It's kind of like on the brink of being completely mopped up, and them being able to use it as like a base of operations. So there's already attacks in the direction of Naselkoy or Naselka here. So the idea is Russians are trying to capture this position here. They'll be able to advance on Pervomaysk, and then they'll be able to advance on Vodyane. I think that's how you pronounce it. So very similar situation here to Popasna. And that's what some other analysts have suggested as well, because this is a very strong, very fortified position. It was basically an anchor in this entire front line. And now that it's been captured, the Russian forces allegedly can attempt to really sprawl out. This line of attack, though, is the one that we've seen that's actually currently happening. There is some footage that I've shared on the Telegram channel. If you guys don't follow it, I guess I can post a link, or maybe someone in the chat can post a link to it. But there is, allegedly some assault actions already towards this small village here to the southwest of Pesky. Moving down to Marinka, the situation here is, this is like where the fog of war really comes in, because there's definitely fighting in Marinka, but we don't really know exactly what's going on. We do know a couple things, like one, this waste heap, quote waste heap, is like a strategic location within the town, has been captured by the Russian side, and once they do capture Marinka, and I think, honestly, the Military Summary Channel had this analogy best. Like, they, not necessarily are going to move north to Krasnogorovka. They're actually probably going to move south. He mentioned that there's already attacks on this small village of Pobjeda, but I haven't seen that intel myself, so I'm not going to say that's true or not. I'm not really sure. But if Marinka is captured and Pobjeda is captured, the Russians can then move down towards this line right here and then end up attacking it from two different locations. So to kind of show you guys what that looks like, they'll move right here, and then they'll move down here, and then at the same time, oh, here we go. Now the Google Earth's frozen too. Oh, Jesus. There we go. Oh, actually, I think it's my mouse. My freaking mouse died. There we go. Gotta get. How often does that happen? Your mouse dies. I feel like AA batteries and mice last forever. All right, so the idea here is if the Russians can move south from Marinka and attack Paraskovkivka and Konstantinivka and Novomihailovka, they can also attack it from this direction too. We've seen this several times throughout the war, where the Russians will try really hard to capture a particular settlement, and they'll kind of like work their way around it. That way they can assault it from two different directions. And it's that's kind of what you might see here. And if they can do that, and if they can manage to capture this whole area, it'll basically force a retreat from Ugledar, which we've talked about as being a very formidable obstacle. It has all these high rises. It's a very fortified frontline settlement there. So that's it for the updates, and we'll get to I'm gonna get to some of you guys' questions. Let's go ahead and zoom the map out here. Can I get some thumbs up on if we're caught up? Yes, Grix J. I really do need to buy a new set. I'm gonna use that YouTube revenue eventually once I get enough of it. All right, I'm gonna scroll up a little bit. I actually don't have. So Charles Martel, thanks for time traveling to the future and talking with us. I do not have any information on the Kodima Zaitseva South. I haven't seen any updates on that in the last day. And there's still no news about Kherson counteroffensive. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened yet. Yeah. As far as the bridge to Montos, the bridges and stuff. I've seen a news story virtually like every other day claiming that now there's been another strike and the Russians are coming off, and then there will be, or they're cut off, and then the next day there will be another strike, and it'd be like now they're cut off, and then another strike and another strike. And I don't think, to me it seems like there is still links between the east and west Khersons, or the east and west banks of the Dnieper River for Russian troops, and I haven't seen any evidence that the rail bridge over the dam is out of commission or has any damage either. The road bridge over the dam had some damage, but in the video where we looked at the damage, they had cars driving over it. Like, so obviously anyone saying that it was cut off at that point was, full of it. Yeah, Kosovo is an interesting topic, but we'll try to save that for another live stream. In terms of like links to the map, honestly, guys, like I've like thought about it before, but I don't. I really don't have the time to like put the work into the map to make it like public. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of old icons on here, and there's like I don't get around to updating some of the information, and it's like kind of messy. Like I have it like to the point where it's good enough to do presentations on where I can skip around, but like I'm just not like confident in I don't want people opening up my map and clicking on like old intel and stuff like that. But that's why I do the Telegram channel in terms of giving you guys like the sources of where this information comes from. Like I basically use the Telegram channel to like when I'm going through like looking at these sources, I'll share them to my channel. That way I have a central location for it all, and then I use that to update the map generally, which I will I will share the link to the Telegram channel in the chat here in just a second, if you guys will. Just hold on. I'm trying to catch up on these questions. Yeah, in terms of pontoon bridges, it's a ferry pontoon. So like rather than building like a long pontoon bridge across the Dnieper River, they threw like apparently like a couple sections of pontoon together. That way, like you could like say load up like 10 vehicles on like this long pontoon, and then the ferry will drag the pontoon across the river, and then those 10 vehicles will unload, and then they can load more back on, and they pull the pontoon back and forth. And that's honestly probably even a safer system, because if it's a stationary pontoon, it can also get targeted by the HIMARS, and they'll just start losing pontoons too. But it's not very efficient in terms of like how much you can move across the river at once, obviously. I had no idea Wagner headquarters got hit. That's interesting. Yeah, I know it got attacked a while ago. Let me get caught up here as we. Yeah, I'm stopping clicking on the map. Hopefully it's some. Okay, all right. We should be getting caught up here. News about Odessa. I don't have any. I honestly haven't heard a whole lot about Odessa recently. I do know that it still suffers from missile strikes weekly, but I think it's a little out of the scope of like the action, Yeah, Udi's been captured. Vershina has been captured, according to the most recent sources. They've been wrong before. Yeah, Kherson. I'm not seeing any evidence that Kherson's being encircled. Hi from the UK. Hey, Rogue Fox, how you doing? Who do I think is winning the war at this point? I think Russia is winning the war at this point. I've stated this several times. Everyone. I don't think there's anyone that really thinks that Russia is going to lose the war, even among like the British and American and EU governments. I think they've known the whole time. I mean, it's just like it's a media game. It's a public, it's psyops. Like they want everyone to think Ukraine's winning. Ukraine wants everyone to think they're winning. Ukraine wants to keep up the hope that they're winning, so they can keep getting arms shipments and possibly have a chance at survival, and that's understandable from their part. But the West is a combination of different things, trying to weaken Russia. Hey, thanks for that donation, Mark. I appreciate that. But yeah, they basically, they just want to weaken Russia as much as they can, which is, arguably like not a terrible strategy. But on paper at the beginning of the war, like I don't think it was like the worst strategy, but I don't think it has turned out the way that they wanted it to. I think that's probably a good way to put it. There's some people that hypothesized, that have hypothesized for years that this was always the plan, that this is what the U.S. and the West was going to do if Russia eventually invaded Ukraine, which is like one of the problems with Western governments and how they operate. Like everything, especially with the U.S., they have to say it out loud and they have to brag about it, right? And they end up telegraphing their moves, like all the sanctions and stuff that went on to Russia in February. Everyone knew that was coming. They said they were going to do it 8 years ago, and basically Russia used the last 8 years to kind of harden themselves against that kind of thing. So like I think that they've suspected for a long time that this is always going to be the strategy of the West, to support Ukraine through arms and stuff, just to try to make it more difficult for the Russians, or try to beat Russia in Ukraine, or like sap Russian strength in Ukraine. That way, if Russia and NATO do go to war, they possibly could be weakened by the country that they just had to go through before they get to like Poland and Romania and stuff. So, which isn't, I don't think is the dumbest strategy like on the face of it, but what's dumb is like, talking about it publicly and like letting the Russians know what you're going to do. Oh wow, just had a whole bunch of stuff load there. Hold on, let me get caught up. Sorry, the chat wasn't loading for me. Yeah, that's they're Stavros' comment. Yeah, they do hit. There's quite a bit of activity on the missile and artillery front every night, going in both directions. It's kind of hard to keep up with, but I assume there's probably several hundred Ukrainian troops and probably like significantly less than that on the Russian side that die every night, like just from missile attacks, like not even on the front lines. All right, let me get the Telegram link here for you guys, because I see some people asking for that. I'm gonna post it in the chat. Hopefully you can like copy it some way. Okay, yeah, here we go. We're getting caught back up again. Yeah, thanks for that $5, Mark. I'm definitely going to use that towards the new laptop, or not towards a new laptop, new desktop, so I can make better live streams. So I won't put it to waste, I promise. Only majority Russian cultural ideas destroyed by the West so far. Okay, yeah, I see. Sending troops to Ukraine. Ruthlessly efficient. Great name. Is North Korea sending troops to Ukraine? I'm unsure of that, but I will say that it's a perfect opportunity, like for any allies of Russia that think they're going to be in a war. Like Serbia, which is a Slavic state and Slavic peoples that are allied with Russia. North Korea is allied with Russia more so than North Korea is allied with China. And then of course you have China. You have like some various other small states around the world, like supposedly Serbia, North Korea, China, or Iran are all like geopolitically in situations where they could be in a war in the next 5 years. So the best or a smart thing to do would be to try to deploy quote volunteers or what would you call them, attaches, military attaches to the Russian army that's operating in Ukraine to observe their tactics, to observe how to fight a war, and the thing, that's valuable for like in terms of attaches, like you'll send like colonels and majors and generals and stuff to witness the combat and write it down for Chinese or Iranian or North Korean use. I'm not saying this is or isn't happening, but it would be smart of them if it was. But the volunteer situation is entirely different because and I've said this several times on the channel before, but the reason why the U.S. military is known as the premier military, or one of the main reasons, is obviously you have the money aspect and the technological aspect, but the U.S. military is full of experienced commanders, both on the commissioned and non-commissioned levels. So your company and brigade and divisional commanders have combat experience, and also you have a lot of non-coms that have combat experience. And being shot at is a great thing in terms of building up experience and knowing what to do in combat, right? If you have guys in your lines that have been shot at and been under artillery barrages and know how to recover from that, know how to calm down the guys around them, and get them as quickly as possible back into combat effectiveness mode. If you just undergo shelling, an hour-long artillery barrage, how fast are they going to come out of that and repel an attack, or launch an attack? Because maybe the enemy's weak. Who knows? Well, it's far easier for a force that has undergone that before to or has people that know what to do, that can carry out those operational activities after such a scenario. So the Chinese military is a lot of people say it's a paper tiger. I don't know if it's completely a paper tiger, but they don't have a lot of guys, or they don't have any guys with combat experience. So I've thought from the beginning that this war might be a good opportunity for the Chinese to send volunteers to like the DPR, LPR, some of these places. And they might still do it, they might not. It depends on how long the war drags out. From info from a friend in the Bundeswehr, the Ukrainians keep delaying Kherson offensive, but the amount of equipment there is a good portion of the overall Ukrainian armored and artillery forces. Thanks for that, the baconing. That's actually it appears that way, and it appears that's why the assault at Pesky started, was because the Russians noticed that all the equipment was gone. Can you tell us info about casualties? Some of the Russian sources tell about 190,000. This is an insane amount, but I can't find sources on Russian losses. What do you mean? Is like 190,000 Ukrainian casualties? I don't know. Well, like, I mean, if that were to be 190,000 killed and wounded, then I don't think that's such a crazy number. That would suggest there's somewhere north of 60 or 70,000 dead on the Ukrainian side, if that's what you're talking about, and I find that to be entirely plausible. Thanks for the second fiver, Mark. The mission of the Russian military operation changes with the armament that is delivered and available for the Ukrainians. Yeah, I mean, I guess like the mission of the missile forces changes, right? Like based on like what equipment is sitting where behind the lines. It's definitely that definitely like changes like their attitude towards things. I mean, if the American side and the European side is sending a lot of like anti-ship stuff or like patrol boats, we've seen stuff in the past, you might see more of a focus on missile strikes in Odessa compared to if it's like a lot of tanks and armored vehicles that might shift further to the north. Yeah, I look exactly like I imagined. I'll take that as a compliment. Thanks, Adi. All right, I'm gonna try to go through this real quick and get caught up. Martin, yeah, honest opinion about the Ukrainian Kherson counteroffensive. It's not really gonna happen. It's probably gonna fail. Yeah, sorry, I'm skipping over some stuff, guys. I can't read through all this. I got a little behind. There we go. Start scrolling around, it goes crazy. Numbers will come out of it, 200,000. Like one of the things about like Russian losses, and I think like there's way too much. Like Russian losses, whether they're high or low. Like I'm not really seeing it as being like such a factor. Like I feel like the media like overvalues, it's like they seem to think that like once Russia hits a certain number of losses, like they'll just give up. And like, it's not gonna happen. And they have way more. It's a way larger country. Like they have like way more troops to lose than the Ukrainian side does. Like, and of course, like Russia always has the option of like mobilization that they still haven't taken. It's already August and they haven't mobilized. Like Russia is working off of volunteer forces like this entire time. So like all the replenishments and everything have been volunteer, and I don't really see the evidence that they're having trouble with volunteers. Just real quick, no one really asked, but go ahead and just address that. He's doing on. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I'll control my yawning. I went out drinking last night, so I am a little tired. I've heard so liberated. I've heard so much about Wagner, but what is Wagner? Sorry for being ignorant. Wagner is a private military contractor. So you always see Wagner PMC. So it's a mercenary army based out of Russia, and there's like a long backstory to that. And someone like who makes good content but I don't always agree with their analysis is the War in Ukraine channel, Ukraine War channel. I mean, he leans a little more pro-Ukrainian. I think he relies a little too much on. He puts too much trust in the information he gets from Ukrainian sources. And that's like the only critique I really have of his channel. But he's a very smart guy, and he understands some things. And he did. And honestly, it might be difficult to find because his videos are all just like dated with whatever date. But a month or two ago, he did a video where he gave some backstory on how Wagner was formed, and it was actually like really good. And they're initially like mercenaryism is not really accepted in like Slavic culture, or specifically like Ukrainian and Russian culture. They see mercenaries like people that are willing to fight for money as like being dishonorable or whatever. But there's some obvious benefits to private military contractors, and Putin and like some of these people like saw that and like have tried to kind of remove like the taboo. I mean, it's still really like they talk about Wagner more in the Russian Telegram channels like that can't be controlled by the Russian government, and they talk about it more in the West than they do on like Russian news media and stuff. Like it's still like a taboo subject, and they kind of avoid it. Which, as you can imagine, there's things like in America when we're at war, like that go on the battlefield that we like try not to talk about. Like they don't really talk a lot about like mercenaries being involved in battles in Afghanistan and Iraq, and how many people in those countries have mercenaries that we have hired, which the U.S. uses a lot of private military contractors and mercenaries. But I mean, generally we use them for like specific jobs like convoy duty. Like we'll put a bid out and be like, we need someone to guard convoys on this highway between these two towns, and do that. And or like say like how Wagner got started. Like they were just like a bunch of Russian guys that were getting paid money to fly down to Syria and set up shop around like oil fields and oil rigs. And they would just come down like with 5 or 6 guys and a bunch of guns, and they might get paid like 10 grand or something, like we'll pay 10 grand a month to whoever can defend this oil rig, so like that's how they like got their start. And like there's similar jobs like that, going on in the U.S. military. Yeah, it is. Wagner is former VDV and Spetsnaz soldier from Heinz Guderian. Thanks for visiting from the past, Heinz. And typically they go for specialists too. So like it's not any former VDV. I think they would take any Spetsnaz, a former Spetsnaz, but they'll go for VDV guys that are like radio operators or tank operators or helicopter pilots and specialty stuff like that. People with very valuable skills. Have U.S. soldiers been under serious artillery barrages in recent history? That's actually an excellent question, Gabe Dublin. And I do not know. Like I imagine that sometime during the in the Gulf Wars and either the first or second Iraqi War, there's definitely some U.S. units that got popped at by some artillery. But like, here's the thing though, is like, how long did they endure that kind of bombardment before airstrikes, found and leveled that artillery? Like, I mean, I'm not really quite sure, but like, it's not. I mean, to be fair, like, I'm not saying that like the U.S. forces would crack under the pressure that the Ukrainian forces are enduring right now. I don't think they would. There's some like equivalence, like just being around, like it's the explosions, like the shell shock in general, that really has an effect on a soldier on the battlefield. And you can experience that from mortars and RPGs and grenades and pipe bombs on the side of the road and various other different things. So it's not just artillery, but like, I will say that the things that the Ukrainian army is enduring on the front line right now is above and beyond anything that American troops have endured over the last 20 years in combat. There have been some tough situations, and I would say that American special forces have been in some very, very tough situations, and not to take credit away from them at all. Because like, I would say that and that's why they're special forces, and they have this combat experience. They've been shot at. They know what it's like. But the typical Ukrainian conscript is going through a hell of a lot more than your average, Army National Guard, regular troop in the U.S. Most schools and universities in North Korea teach English and Russian. That's interesting. I did not know that. How do you know that, William? It's one of the best cooks. Does the French military have the best cooks? Probably. I don't know. I hear French food's actually overrated. I don't know. U.S. has no idea what it's like to fight this type of war. I mean, in a way, kind of, but like, also, like, we definitely have, just like how Russia probably has some Chinese attaches among their troops. There's definitely 100% U.S. Attaches in Ukraine. So like, we're observing what this kind of war is like right beside the Ukrainian high command, and we're learning from it. Like, that's not nothing, I mean, the U.S. is gonna come out a winner of this situation. Maybe not politically for Joe Biden, but in terms of like the U.S. military and the U.S. defense industry are going to come out. It's certainly going to come out ahead. There is some weaknesses there, though. Like, we have given up some serious equipment, but it exposed it's. The first, I guess, a good analogy here is the best. The first step to solving a problem is identifying that there is one, and shipping out like all of our anti-tank weapons identifies a problem that we don't have any weapons, right? And then from that point of view, it's like, wow, we got to get our supply chains and manufacturing on these things, and like Stingers especially. We don't even make Stingers anymore. We got to get those assembly lines restarted. So I think that's something valuable there, that they finally got the ball rolling on that for the U.S. side. There's not a single person alive today in the U.S. who has experienced fighting a peer opponent on a grand land scale. That's very specific, Robert. I agree. But I think, like, when we're talking about like peer opponents, like, you're talking about like one nation versus another, like one military structure versus another. But like, when you like, people like think of it like on a ground combat level, and it's like, do you really think like the average soldier is? I get the feeling, and I do think that the average U.S. soldier has like more training than the average Taliban soldier, right? But like, at the same time, like, you can't think that they're superior in every way, because that'll get you killed, right? Like, the Taliban are still dangerous. They can still kill you very easily. Like, they got tanks and stuff too. It's not nothing. So I mean, I think people get to watching movies a little too much, and like they see like some special forces guy, like 5 or 6 special forces guy, like tear through a nation, like in like some of these Hollywood movies, and it's like, it's like beating baby seals with a club, basically. And I don't think I think the combat's very different from that than that. I think most of the advantages that the U.S. has is like an air power and how that's integrated with the Army, and like how they can give back up to their troops. I do think their troops have better training, but I don't know. It's difficult to say. All right, let's chill with the spamming. I'll try to get the ones where you guys have tagged me. Oh, I hope I'm not talking about ARM USRA. Like I don't really see that happening. I hope it doesn't happen. I'm just gonna pretend like that's not gonna happen. What's my day job? Well, I don't really want to like say specifically because what if someone tries to cancel me? But I do like tech stuff. Ish. Ghost of Kherson invasion. Good to see you, new. Thanks, Rajesh. Rajesh. Sorry, I'm messing up your name, but thank you. Can you find somewhere on the map the ghost of Kiev? No, he's a ghost. I haven't seen him. Yeah, Wagner is very useful, by the way. I don't know who was saying that, but I saw a reply to it. If Wagner wasn't useful, they're very useful. They're probably like the most useful force on the Russian side in terms of initiative. They have a lot of initiative. All right, guys, I'll try to answer from here on out, like any of the if you at me. Or obviously if you do like a super chat or something and donate, I'll try to answer those questions. I'll give this another like 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes ish. So will North Korea actually be present in Ukraine? Maybe. I don't know. I haven't seen any evidence to suggest that yet. But it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world, I guess we'll say. So, if you have any specific questions, make sure you at me or, obviously the super chats and the donations stuff. I'll answer your questions on those too, and I would appreciate those, and they'll go towards a laptop or a computer. There we go. Raphael, thanks for the $4.99, buddy. After Gettysburg, both armies understood that the war was over. Why are we still fighting in Ukraine? I am lost as a former U.S. Marine. Okay, so I think like the big thing to understand here, and I was very critical of this at first, and I'm critical of it in a lot of ways, but if you look at the map here, there's 2 places, and Ukraine is largely an indefensible country. But there's 2 places where you can, stage a defense for a certain amount of time, and one is at the Dnieper. It's a big river. It's a formidable obstacle. It's tough to cross. Any kind of crossing can be, you can concentrate forces on the other side, get yourself a nice bottleneck going, and stop it, right? Of course, you have to worry about the Belarusian border, but at least you're reducing the directions of attack if you're defending on the Dnieper. The other place is the Donbass Seversky Donetsk line. So like that line is the only other place in the country where you can stage like a long-term, like a lasting defense. I disagree with Ukrainian tactics and holding on to some of these places that were untenable for too long. Specifically Liman. Liman, I think, was one of the worst ones. Liman and then Severodonetsk. There was no, like, they should have retreated from Liman for sure. They could have saved probably 1,000 troops, from certain death. Same thing with Severodonetsk. They should have retreated from there. Politically speaking, I think they were worried about the image of like those retreats, but in the end, they sold them as tactical. They tried to sell it to the public as tactical withdrawals. If you're going to end up saying that in the end, anyways, then why not just tactically withdraw, live to fight another day, and then tell the public that's what you're doing, and I hope they'll understand. So I mean, Ukraine is I honestly. Would give a lot of credit to General Zaluzhny, who is the supreme commander of the forces of the military. I see him as having actually some very positive attributes for a commander. Like, he's done an excellent job. I think that the issues for Ukraine are political, and they have to do more with Zelensky and his office. But yeah, that's obviously, Ukraine is still holding on, and you can expect any sovereign nation to hold on as long as they can, as long as they have the ability to. At some point, though, there is going to be a tip in the balance, and it might just collapse. Any chance this war ending this year, Dr. Adrit? Maybe. I don't know. It, like, just what I was just telling Raphael, it really depends on like what the condition of Ukraine as a country is. Like, is it on the brink of collapse? Like, I mean, the recent polling numbers, and I talked to this on the live stream we had the other day with Earl Grey. I got his opinion on an article that was going around that suggested that 98% of the Ukrainian population that was polled in a given poll believed in victory. And what wasn't saying that 98% agreed with the country's self-defense. It's like what the polls were earlier in the war. They were trying to show how united the population was. It's like 92% of the country wants to defend itself and doesn't want to be, captured by Russia. That's what those polls were saying. This recent poll is 98% believes in victory. So like they're being sold something through Ukrainian media, which does control all the information in Ukraine. And I get the feeling that they're 100% just being told that we're winning, and that's why the population believes they're gonna win. So like in terms of like a collapse, like a full-on political collapse of the country, it seems like people are pretty set, and the government has really good control over information there. The collapse would be military, and I don't know. It's really hard to tell the state of the Ukrainian military. We know they got a lot of manpower, but like, what do they have left in terms of equipment? Like, how much are they fixing up? How much stuff do they have sitting around in warehouses from Soviet times that they've been refurbishing? I imagine that's actually a lot more than what people think. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, say if they had 900 tanks at the beginning of the war, I wouldn't be surprised if there was another 1,000 sitting somewhere within Ukraine, mothballed, that had been cannibalized or whatever, that, they could probably get, like, say, 500 or 600 of those working again. I would not be surprised if that was the case. So I don't really know what the state of the Ukrainian army is. It seems like it's not good. It seems like it's weaker for sure than it was. Do you think Russia can take Kharkiv and Odessa? Well, yeah, it depends on like when they decide to commit to those things. I think it seems like the Donbass is still the focus. That's where like the majority of the fighting is going on. And Kharkiv and Odessa, Kharkiv specifically is a large city, and it will take a lot of effort to invest it, and probably they would want to surround it. One of the problems they had with the first time of like investing Kharkiv was The Ukrainian side, this place to let Amnesty International was writing and saying, but the Ukrainian side was placing their artillery like in between buildings and stuff, and it was like very hard to hit. Like either the Russians weren't willing to go after them because they would be like close to like civilian targets, or they would try to go after them, but like they're just too tightly like placed within between like two high rises or something. So like it was impossible to get them, and that's the problem with getting too close to Kharkiv. Like Kharkiv's gonna bite back. With Odessa, it just the route to Odessa is a little treacherous. Real quick, I'll go ahead and zoom in here and show you guys. But if they can't capture Mykolaiv and the bridge in Mykolaiv, they have to move all the way to the north here to this town of Novopetrivsk. And that is where the next bridge is, I believe. There is a rail bridge here somewhere, but like if the Russians get close to Mykolaiv or close to capturing it, Ukrainians going to try to destroy those bridges. So basically, Russia has to go up and down and around to get down here to Odessa, and it's going to take a lot of troops because like they're going to have to capture a good bit of territory to the north of Odessa in order to shield themselves and actually properly invest and try to capture the town. Why can't the Chinese use kung fu skills to play soccer? I don't know. I think you're on the wrong channel. I but that's a good point though. That's a good point. Are they not good at soccer? I don't know. Do you think we will see another round of fast advances and huge offensives like we've seen in the beginning of the war? If yes, then when? At the point that the Ukrainian army is weak enough, Itan, I think that's I think Russia's playing it like as safe as they can. Like they want to, limit their losses as much as they can. And they're probably not going to make any deep advances and stuff, and risk what happened to them in the Chernihiv and Sumy regions again, unless they know for a fact that Ukraine's weak and they can just like punch right through. Got another super chat from Raphael again. Thanks for the $4.99. More and more, it looks like a wrestling match to me. A choreographed fight between two superpowers. They establish boundaries for the fight. That honestly, that is a very interesting statement, man. Like, because there obviously has been a bit of communication between the two to avoid a nuclear exchange or something. Like the U.S. military, I believe, has probably told Russia at this point, and maybe even vice versa, like we don't want to go to war together. And I think they've known for a long time that they don't ever want to be at war together. But U.S. has probably said, we're going to support Ukraine, and Russia has probably said, something along the lines of, well, suit yourself, but don't send any F-16s or F-35s or something like that. Like there probably is, there might have been some kind of conversation, some ground rules laid out. That's an interesting comment, though. Thanks for that. Jackson, how many Ukrainian troops have been casualties? I've seen very little on them. I've heard 40,000 plus Russians have been casualties. 40,000 plus is the Ukrainian number, and as far as I can tell, it's pulled out of thin air, and it's been, like the U.S. CIA has said it's only about 15,000 KIA, and that's, to me, that number is a combination of the DPR, LPR, and the Russians all together, and that still might be a bit of an overestimation in terms of casualties. So I don't think there's 40,000 dead Russians. There might be 40,000 dead and wounded Russians, Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republic citizens. Maybe, that would not be too low of a figure if you were to include wounded in it. But I think Ukrainian casualties are probably monumental at this point. I've seen far more evidence for that. Do you expect that Belarus will get involved at some point? They could really put a lot of pressure on Ukraine. Thanks for that, Chris Cano. Yeah, I mean, just to zoom out a little further, so anyone doesn't know, Belarus allied to Russia. It really depends. I mean, Belarus itself, doesn't have that big of a military. But if they instituted the conscription, they can probably pull up some guys. There's some rumors from the Ukrainian side that they attempted to do a conscription drill to see what would happen, and 90% of the conscripts didn't show up for the mobilization drill. So Ukraine all of a sudden was saying they weren't worried about Belarus. But I mean, I think in terms of a drill, I don't know. To me, why would they have a drill to mobilize 100% of their conscripts anyways? I think if Belarus wants to enter the war, or if Russia wants Belarus to enter the war, that's gonna happen, right? But I think it's a little more valuable just as an extension of Russian territory. Say if they used Belarusian troops and Belarusian army just solely to guard the border of Poland and Lithuania, and then used Belarusian VDV, or I don't know if they call them VDV, but Belarusian paratroopers and Spetsnaz, along with another Russian expeditionary force to enter Ukraine from the Belarusian border. Again, I see that as very plausible, but I'm not so sure how much of the Belarusian army is even big enough to participate. They can probably immediately add, if they join the war, they can add 10 to 15,000 troops to the fight, a couple brigades to the fight, and that's just not enough to cover such a long border between Belarus and Ukraine. It's just, I don't know. I think there would have to be a lot of Russian troops coming in from that direction. Balan, any plans on covering the drug cartel in Mexico a couple days ago? Honestly, man, and here's the thing, if this channel ever gets big enough, I would love to I would love to start a company, but I would love to have some someone working for me to help me put intel together on different situations going on, that way I'm not spending my whole day researching these things, and I have another job too, but I do know a little bit about cartels and in that situation, but I haven't I don't have the time to read up on it daily. So I will just say that cartels are the largest geopolitical threat to the United States. Really, in terms of cartel violence that's moving north into America, it's a lot more than what people think it is. And there's a lot of cases of cartels actually fighting American gangs and stuff, because it used to be the system where there was a lot of the drugs would come from Colombia, right? You guys have seen Narcos, and then there'd be all these middlemen that would get some money, and everyone would kind of get rich. But the cartels have slowly been moving north and essentially conquering each other until now they're they move the stuff through Mexico and across the border, and they give the product to American gangs, whether it's the Hells Angels or or someone like that that's moving the drugs around the country and distributing them, or it's actual gangs in the inner cities that are selling straight to they're the consumer, and then they're selling to the consumer, right? That's the most direct. That's your retail guys, right? So the cartels are just moving in and dominating all steps of the supply chain. So they're starting to take over the distribution networks in America, and then they're starting to move in and take over the retail aspect of it, and it presents a big danger. And if you ask me, I'm pro U.S. I want the U.S. gangs to succeed if it's over the cartels. I don't know. It's a weird situation, but it's funny you asked that. I wish I could talk about it. I wish I had time to invest in that. Mattia, do you think if Russia has two more breakdown, the Ukrainian army can simply go into an eternal rout or collapse? I think I get what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, if the Russian army could manage to like, and this is what I don't understand, and this is why I think they are confident in the pace that they're going at right now, and they also are very aware of the strength of the Ukrainian army, whereas like we really aren't. But I think once it gets to a certain point of weakness, and if Russia wanted to end it, they could just launch like a double envelopment of a large grouping of Ukrainian troops somewhere on the line and smash them, and then basically just breach a big hole in the line. Like they still have that opportunity in the Donbass area if they can manage to break through like Izium or like what is this Vilka Novosilka. I mean, if they had the troops, which Russia is a large country, and I think they can find the volunteers for this, but they could still encircle and destroy this army in the Donbass. Like the threat has still been there the whole time, and the lines or the terrain isn't very advantageous for the Ukrainians in the Barvinkov and Velika Novosilia areas. Like this is steppe. This is pure farmland and stuff. So I don't think I just don't think Russia's ready for it, but it's possible. It's definitely possible. All right, hold on. I got 2 super chats. Thanks again, Raphael. Russia could end this war yesterday by hitting one European city to show that they're not kidding. Everyone knows it. Yeah, well, hopefully they don't ever do that, man. Like, I mean, there was talk of that all the way through the Cold War. I mean, Europe isn't actually participating in the war. It's a war through proxy, I guess, is like the best way to look at it. And you really don't want to do more to like you don't want to drag more people in than you have to, right? Let me get that other for the new. Thanks, Kosh. 963. I really appreciate that. Okay, another one from the doc. Belarus can very much provide logistical support. What is the most important thing Russians need right now? Which is the most important thing Russians need right now? I mean, logistics is very important in Russia in general. Like, it's always been a tough battlefield for both sides. But generally, the Russians come out on top in their wars during the winter. How much land do you think Russia intends on taking before the end of the war? A lot more than what they have now. I think everything east of the Dnieper, definitely. Perhaps more. Yeah, thanks for that, Kosh. Do you think we will see another round of fast advances and huge offensives like we have seen in the beginning of the war? Oh yeah, I already answered that. I'm sorry. You spamming. I answered your question, Yitan. I do think it's possible once the Ukrainian army is weak enough. Yeah, the Russians like are trying to. They're just going at their own pace. I think they're. It seems to me like they're almost enjoying what's going on in Europe in terms of like economy and recession and energy prices. And the longer they keep up the game, it seems like Russia can go at this pace for a while, whereas Ukraine cannot. All right, guys. I think let me see how long we're at here. We are at an hour and 10 minutes. I'm going to answer this one last. Okay, no, that's just a repeat. All right, I think I'm going to call it here, guys. We might do this. I don't know. Like we'll start doing this every Sunday, like once a week. We'll do a live stream, and I'll answer your questions about what's going on over the last week. Thanks for joining. It's exciting. There's over 700 of you watching right now. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate everyone that donated during the chat. It'll go a long way. I won't waste it, I promise. I'll get a new PC that way we can have less buggy streams. Amateur reporting, yeah. Well, thanks, man. All right, I guess I'll cover these because I think they're coming in late. How difficult will it be to take Odessa to that end? I mean, I don't think Odessa is going to undergo the same destruction that these other cities. It's too important for Russian culture. A lot of people have covered this. Like there's no, and the same thing with Kyiv. Like a lot of like the news around like bombardments of Kyiv, like it was really on the outskirts of Kyiv, in some of these suburbs, and none of it really hit like the historic parts of the city. Both of those cities, and even Kharkiv. I mean, a lot of the bombardment of Kharkiv has been like either pinpoint or on the outskirts and stuff. Like they specifically avoid cultural objects because, like, I mean, these are all like considered to be Russian cities at one point. Like Kyiv was in Russian hands for a long time. I mean, it's like originally like, Kiev and Rus was like the original like Slavic state in the area. There's old architecture that's way too important to both Russian and Ukrainian peoples, so they're not gonna risk destroying those cities. I think especially in the case of Odessa, is way too important. They'll probably just surround it and starve it out, or like maybe like if they do have to move in, they'll do it with like Wagner and some like special forces, and at that point they're probably hoping that they'll have plenty of free elite forces to storm the city and not have to do too much damage to it if it comes to that. That's okay, Eatman. Don't be sorry. Like I think there or Itan, I'm sorry. I think there is a lag in between because I'm like watching the channel right here and watching the chat, and my voice isn't really lining up. So I think there's a big lag between when I'm answering y'all's questions and when you ask them. Thanks for the 20, Dima. Thank you for standing for the truth. Absolutely, man. I really appreciate that. That's why I started this channel. I just want to like tell things like how I see it. I don't want anyone telling me what to say and what not to say. And like, I mean, I understand everyone's got their own sides, and obviously like there's gonna be some people that are pretty passionate for Ukraine, and there's also people that are passionate and like see the Russian side, and I mean there's more on the Ukrainian side because of the West and the stance they've taken, and I understand that. Like, it's totally understandable. Like it all depends on the way media sells the stories. If you're going to sell a story in a certain way, like most people, I mean, we're all human beings, and like inevitably, like a lot of these organizations know how to manipulate that in a way too. And I don't want there to be like that level of manipulation. Like, I want to report on this situation and tell you guys how I see it and what's going on. And if you still, have your support for Russia or have your support for Ukraine, then so be it. Like, it's better that way to like have like the true information, or at least have information coming from both sides, than it is to just like let someone on the news like tell you what's up. I don't know. I don't like mainstream media. Thanks for the 5, Mark. Spending these American dollars while they still have value. Yeah, that 5, that's a formerly a 1, right? I mean, it's a funny meme I saw the other day. It was like, wow, these new $1 bills are crazy. And it was like a picture of a 10. It's funny. What is the actual morale of the average Russian soldier? Honestly, like there's been a lot of talk about this, and like even like some of like the more like famous like geopolitical like thinkers out there have made some statements on this. Like I don't necessarily agree with. Like Peter Zion seems to be under the impression that the morale of the average Russian soldier is like very low, but also it's probably like slightly higher for the Ukrainians, but it's not going to matter because like they don't have the weapons, right? But like I think that analysis is just based off of like what the media has told us about Russian morale. I don't think there's really that much evidence that like I mean I'm sure it was pretty low after they withdrawed from Sumy and Kyiv in that area, but like how is it still low at this point? I mean especially like a lot of these places like the whole Zaporozhye line, the entire Kherson line, like I mean Russian forces like kind of sit around and like I mean compared to the Ukrainian side and like a lot higher degree of safety, like there's not nearly as much artillery coming at them as that they're sending out. So I just don't imagine a world where the morale of the average Russian soldier on the front is lower than that of the average Ukrainian soldier. I mean, there's different attributes that affect that, right? Like, you know, like love of country and patriotism. Like, I'm sure, like, the average Ukrainian soldier, like, you know, believes that, like, or you know, like they were attacked in February, and like if you have the strict control on information and stuff in Ukraine, they're going into things like, you know, thinking I'm defending my country and like, you know, against the invader and things like that, and that has like some very positive effects on morale. But like at the same time, I think the bigger effects on morale are like, you know, like how many of your friends died this week, or like how many hours have you had of sleep, you know, like free of like shelling and stuff like that. And I just see that as being like a greater effect. Do you see Russia running out of ammo given the amount of artillery they keep dropping? No, absolutely not. They have bukus. Oh, I see that. I like what you did there. New, and then you got the world thing. Grand Emperor Putin. You're asking for intel, huh? Will Putin discover light travel? I don't know. Probably not. I don't think he's a scientist like that. I mean, he does things, but nanotech? No. I don't like. Listen, I don't really. I'm not that privy to like what Russian like technology, what the level of Russian technology is, and like where they stand with some of these things. Like I think they are a lot more advanced than the West portrays them to be, but I don't think they're ahead of us by any stretch of the imagination in much of this. Obviously in hypersonic weapons, but you know, if you put enough money into something in a particular thing, you can get ahead. But like there's just so many things to research, and the U.S. has a lot more money they throw towards all these things. But I mean, I do think there's some like corrupt aspects to the way. I think there's like a lot of like money that goes to waste, like in research that goes to waste in the U.S., whereas like they might have like a better control of it in Russia. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. Thanks for that, Youngster. Appreciate the comment. Got another super chat here. 20 from Giorgio. Thanks, man. Or Gregorio. Thanks. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Big help to the channel. Have a wonderful Holy Sunday. Thank you, Mattia. What do you think of Wikipedia being biased for Ukraine? It's not surprised. I mean, it's all, you know, we've been seeing this for years, guys, with like the way the internet and some of this, like, I mean, we look at it as like an attack on free speech, like change, you know, like Wikipedia, like the weird one for me, and like twice under this Biden administration, there's been like two questionable things. One, and I'm really not gonna like try to like mention this too much because I don't want any like hits from YouTube or monetization or anything like that, but like a specific health official in the U.S. like kind of like being reckless with the definition of like gain of function research, which isn't, you know, which I don't think is legal. It's, you know, there's a story about that, you know, that like you can look into on your own, and I don't really like trying to change the definition of that to like get out of things. And then there's also like the, you know, changing the definition of recession and Wikipedia. Like if you guys saw that like screen grab, like there was like a battle going back and forth on Wikipedia, and they ended up locking it and keeping it as like the government's. It was just I hate that stuff. Hold on a second. I got a super chat that's disappearing. The war is very popular in Russia. I think that would translate into high morale in the troops. Yeah, I mean, like it certainly would. And honestly, like talking to I spoke to a girl that like is Russian and moved out of Russia recently, and she was not supportive of the war. Like she was taking more of a Western view of things, that it was like a bad thing that was going on, which is fine. And there's obviously people on both sides of the political aisle who believe that. I mean, war is bad. But she even admitted towards like the urban population of Russia, like in some of these bigger cities, was like 55-45 or 60-40 in favor of the war. So like that, can't really be discounted. Like they, I really don't see Russia, or with that being, if that's true, I can't imagine Russia having a problem with not necessarily morale, because like that's more of like a battlefield thing, but like specifically finding volunteers like in conscription and stuff. Like I don't think it'd be a problem. What do you think? So Wikipedia. Hopefully that kind of answered your question. Like I think that a lot of these things. Where it's like, we want freedom of speech and we don't want information and stuff deleted and censored and everything, but at the same time, like Twitter or Wikipedia, like these are private companies, and like they have a right to like throw out whatever information they want out there, right? So like I do believe in that. Like I'm economically very libertarian, but like I think the answer to it is like, all right, well, if that's going to be the case, then we're going to put out a competing site, like a competing Wikipedia or a competing Twitter, that's going, if it's going to, censor stuff like on a liberal side of things, then we need, then there's something that comes from the other direction that censors things on a conservative side, which is also like bad too. But eventually, like everyone's going to get fed up with that, and we're going to get the perfect situation where there's finally going to be a company that comes out and be like, all right, well, we're just going to follow free speech. Like we're going to read the Constitution, and that's how we're going to run our business, and we're not going to censor anything, which is like, you're starting to see some of that. But like once platforms like that like start to grow, or once like certain platforms are like, if they decide to change on their own and like go into that, then that will be good too. And that's what I want. I don't want a liberal bias on these sites. I don't want a conservative bias on these sites. I want them to report everything and not really pick sides. I want the objective truth. I think most of us do. And hopefully eventually that's what we'll get. Oh yeah, thanks for the 10. Canadian 10. Oh, actually, and I can actually pay for stuff in Colorado with Canadian money. It's weird. It's not like that on the East Coast. Thanks for the tenner. Do you think Russia is keeping the pace to see what other NATO Western tech they can capture in a war? I mean, it's not. I don't think it's the reason why they're doing what they're doing, but like they're certainly trying to like capture. I mean, like just like how the U.S. is learning from this war, I mean Russia is learning from the war as well. Like, and I think they're learning more than everyone else. Obviously, like if you're on the winning side, like they're trying things. They're trying things that are working. They're trying things that aren't working. Like it's invaluable to like know these things and be able to test them out against like say I guess you'd say like a mechanically inferior foe. I don't want to say like they're like inferior. Obviously not inferior people, but like the armor and like the equipment of Ukraine is inferior to that of Russia. So Russia has an opportunity here to like test things out, test out tactics. I mean, testing out tactics is way bigger than testing out various forms of equipment. I mean, equipment is equipment. Like there's no like, I mean, wonder weapons. I don't think, we got nukes, like that's the wonder weapon, or like our hypersonics, that's a wonder weapon. I think that, like as far as like capturing like a HIMARS or capturing, Caesar self-propelled guns or M777s. Like, I mean, how valuable are some of the tracking systems on those things? Like, they have some value on it, but like they're not like complete game changers. And it's not like Russia doesn't have some of this stuff. Like, Russia has counter battery radars. They have targeting systems. They might not be as good, but like I don't know. That's not really like my best area of expertise. But thanks for that, Tin. I appreciate it. Hopefully that kind of answers your question. Let's get caught up here. He's just making stuff up. I make everything up, Charles. Right out of my ass. Be nice to Charles. I'm sorry. You know, he can have his opinion. You know, like, I think that, like, I get this feeling, and, like, this is, like, a big thing that goes on in the world, but, or just, like, a general assumption that, like, there's, like, people out there, like, there's adults in the room that are, like the people running the government are, like, superior people that just, like, know what's going on, and everyone should, you know, shut up and leave it to the experts and everything. But, like, all, like, people are like capable of like being knowledgeable in different topics and everything. Like, it's not there's people aren't special, you know, like I mean, everyone's special in their own way, but like you know, I can get on YouTube and I can have an opinion, and you know, that's fine, that's okay. And other people can get on YouTube and they can have different opinions, and that's fine, that's okay. Like, the more opinions out there, the better. Yeah, like, some people don't know what they're talking about on certain topics, but like it's all like just a perspective. And you can think that. I'm not mad at you. All right. I think we're getting close to the point where we're gonna wrap it up. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and call it now. It's at 1:26. I guess. Hold on. All right. A couple more minutes. I'll go to an hour 30. So we got 3 minutes real quick. And there is a delay, so it might already be over by the time you guys are hearing this. So I'm going to answer this one more question, or a couple more questions. Saw a video on Telegram of February 24th where the Russian BTRs just drifted through Kharkiv. Poor souls. Yeah. Well. I might have seen the same video. I'm not really sure, but like, one of the things, just like a side note on that, like, I am like skeptical of a lot of like the video footage we saw early in the war, like of whose equipment we were actually seeing, you know, because like you have Russian equipment, Ukrainian equipment. A lot of it is actually the same, like because they're post-Soviet equipment. So like, I think, especially with destroyed tanks and stuff, like, it's really hard to tell unless it's like up close and you can like really see, I don't know, like maybe if it's flagged, or with Ukrainian equipment it's a little easier because they have like a certain camouflage pattern, but like with the Russian equipment you can be like, oh well, there's a destroyed tank with Z's on it, and it's like, well, you can destroy a tank, can get destroyed and you can paint Z's on it afterwards, you know, like, it's not, you can't paint digital camouflage onto a destroyed tank afterwards. Like, you can really tell. So that's the only thing I'll say about like videos of equipment and stuff. Like, you have to be careful. You have to be careful with that stuff. Yeah, that's right, Bob. I mean, it's like I was telling this to my friend the other day, like, where he's like, you know, you should trust like what, you know, your bureaucrats or officials say, and I was like, dude, like, they wake up on the wrong side of the bed, like, they cut themselves shaving, they fart sometimes and shit their pants a little, you know, like just like like all the like same BS that the average person goes through on every day. Like, it's just like, you know, people look up at the government and, like, you know, whether it's like Joe Biden or Donald Trump or like whoever it is, and they see them as being like, you know, larger than life. And no one's larger than life. We're all human beings. The Don't you know if you don't know if you covered this, but how many HIMARS do you think Russia has destroyed? I think they've destroyed some of them. Like there's been some video that doesn't really show, but they claim to have destroyed 6, and that might not be the case. It might be less than that. I mean they're definitely on the hunt for them, and I find it likely that they probably have gotten some of them. I find it unlikely that the U.S. line that all of them are still intact and working. I find that to be less likely, especially because the frequency of HIMARS strikes has gone down, or successful targets destroyed has gone down. I think that's a mix of two things, like one, improved air defense coverage, and then two, probably reduction in the number of HIMARS systems that are operating. Yeah, James Vasquez took a pic with Ukrainian tanks, said it was Russian. I've been hearing a lot about this character, this James Vasquez guy. I don't know. I hate to. I don't ever want to like my intent is not to like go after like people or like challenge people. Like if you're going on in Ukraine and you're a soldier on the front line of either side, I mean, I'm not over there like that. I mean, that's incredibly brave either way. I mean, I don't know if he's on the front line or not. That's the other thing. But I don't really have much criticism for the men on the ground carrying out the fight. I reserve my criticism to the politicians. Well, I mean, for the listen, I wish you guys wouldn't argue with each other in a chat. Wish we can all get along. It's fine though. But for the most part, I appreciate you guys keeping it surprisingly very civil, because this I have seen some really bad, some really violent discussions on Reddit and places. So, thanks for that. Try not to get on. Don't go too hard on each other in the chat, because we don't want YouTube giving any attention to this and trying to do something about that, right? Do you think the Azov battalion are Nazis? Well, I mean, the Azov symbol is clearly a swastika. It's the literal. Let me see. Let me show you. It's the first SS tank battalion is what they copied it from. Tank division. Let me see. Images. Patch. Let me show you guys, just so you know. Hopefully YouTube doesn't ban us for talking about this, but it's not the first. I'm not really sure where it came from. The specific unit, so don't quote me on that. But the patch is literally it's an SS swastika type deal, and it is based off of a old Nazi German tank division that was SS that were Nazis, and they've copied it, and it might have been a division that was actually formed in Ukraine after the Nazi occupation of Ukraine in the in 1939 or 40, whenever they showed up there, because they did form some units in the western parts of Ukraine. So that might be where they historically copied it from. But yeah, it's I'm not going to say too much more. It's fairly obvious what they are. All right, guys. Yeah, I could move to Rumble. I just don't know. Like, yeah, I'm just trying. I don't want to break like, I'm not interested in like being a rebel and breaking YouTube's rules. Like, I'd like to keep it. Okay, yeah, this guy said it was actually from a Ukrainian SS unit. So it was. I think that is right. I think it was a Ukrainian unit that was formed under the Wehrmacht in Ukraine. But I'm pretty sure it was a tank division. Second SS Panzer Division. Okay, let me look that up, and I'll show you guys. We'll see. Second SS Panzer Division. All right. Yeah, this is great. This is good. This is it. This is where the logo came from, for the Azov Battalion. Elite division of the Waffen SS, formed from the regiments of the SSVT. Yeah. All right. I guess we'll end on that. It's getting a little dicey. You guys are asking some sketchy questions in terms of like YouTube. I don't want to get thrown off here. But hey, everyone, thanks for joining. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna try to do this every Sunday, and we can have a chat like this. I would like to keep it at like an hour because it makes it tough for like people to go back and watch all of this if it's an hour and a half. So I am gonna keep it under an hour in the future, and I might, if there's any more news coming out today, I'll make some short updates for you guys, and I'll continue to post the battlefield footage that's appropriate for YouTube on my channel so you guys can see it as well. But